Aslam Du Toit, property specialist, serial entrepreneur, and digital content creator. Welcome to the show. You do so many things. It's a pleasure to be with you. And, you know, when I was born many, many years ago, I was always instilled to buy property and it would naturally increase in value. Well, it's not the case today. So what's going on out there in the market? You're buying these assets, but you've got to work hard to keep them going. What's your take?
Look, I think that property is still a good investment, but I think we have to take it for what it is, which is it's a very long-term investment. And you can't judge it, you know, over a 5-year or even a 10-year holding period in most cases. I'll never forget when I just got started in property, I was working in the bank and I spoke to an investor. This man, probably 85 or 80 years old, and he was asking for a loan. He wanted to buy 4 little residential units in Rosettenville. Now, if you know Rosettenville in Johannesburg, it's not the best area. And I was the credit analyst in the bank.
Right.
And I refused to approve or to recommend the facility. And the banker said, you know what, I'm going to bring this man in and you can speak to him. And I said, why is he buying this thing? I mean, it's a dog. You know, and I'll never forget, he walked in and he said, young man, let me tell you something. I was about 24 years old. So let me tell you something. He says, I don't care what the economists say. I don't care what the president says or any businessman. Property moves in stages. He says that over time, it only goes in one direction. And he drew this for me on a page and he said, it only moves in one direction. It goes up, it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. He says, every few years, you do get a correction where it dips.
Sure.
Is that you need to expect. It's always going to happen. He says, but in the long term, it's always going up. He said, and the reason I'm buying this property, even though it's a dog, you see it as a dog. He says, I buy property in Hyde Park, which is a very upmarket area. He says, but those properties make me negative cash flow. He says, but when I buy these cheap blocks of flats in these terrible areas, he says, I make positive cash flow. And that positive cash flow pays for the negative cash flow in Hyde Park. Because in Hyde Park, I get amazing capital growth, but my income growth is terrible. And that was a wake-up call for me, and I saw how he balanced this. So I've always believed that, you know, property is a long-term investment. It's not something you should expect to profit from in the short term.
Right.
You should have a very long-term vision in mind. And the property investors that I deal with, one in particular, he's always telling me whenever we're looking at a deal, he's saying, you know what, in 10 years, because we do commercial mostly, he says in 10 years' time, this property is going to be paid off and we'll have a paid off property. And that's his target. He's never thinking 2 years down the line. He's never thinking, 5 years down the line. He wants to make it cash flow positive from now, but the real wealth only comes in year 10.
But I mean, if you're talking commercial property, I mean, one of the big challenges the landlords or the owners have is to obviously rent the space out. I mean, that's a big challenge today. So much competition, a lot of supply.
Remember the industry is very segmented, especially the commercial segment. It's very segmented. You get offices, obviously, and then you get retail, then there's industrial, then you get mixed-use property. And offices is obviously where the stress is right now for obvious reasons. I think 2020 just came along and expedited what was already happening. The office sector, it was coming for a long time. I think the pandemic just sped up that process. But if you look at industrial, it's probably the best performing asset class across the property sector, residential included. You'll find I deal sometimes with a lot of listed funds. I speak to listed funds. I try to see what they're offloading at times. And I spoke to one listed fund and they were offloading some assets. And I said, why don't you show me some of the industrial stuff that you're offloading? And he said, well, I'm not offloading. If you can find me industrial stock, I'll buy it from you. Right. Because industrial is what is currently the best performing asset. You know, just think about it. People are, working from home and they're buying online. The products need to be stored somewhere. So what's happening in the industrial sector is you're finding small online retailers renting industrial space for their stock. Right. And needs to be delivered somewhere. So for that reason, industrial is a well-performing asset class in the commercial sector. Retail
Right.
also does, I wouldn't say it's doing well. There are obviously struggles because of the economy. But in general, just think about walking into your local shopping center. How many vacancies do you generally see? Not many, right? I see some vacancies, but it normally gets filled really quick. So I would say that the real pressure on the commercial side is more in the office sector as opposed to your industrial and even your retail. And then you get other types of commercial, like your student accommodation, of course. There as well, big demand.
So Aslam, you're on the street, so they say, in the sense that you have the eye and the ear of so many of the consumers. What would you do differently to stimulate market in the in the corporate environment to obviously naturally bring people back to the office? I know that in the Sandton CBD, we've leased out half of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I know that Sasol have leased out their building. Discovery have also. So there's a trend to work from home, but a lot of these landlords obviously want to rent out their space. What should they be doing differently, in your opinion, to attract attention, to get their space rented out? I mean, I know it's challenging, but what would you see that they're not doing that they should be doing?
I don't think we can ignore what's happening in, because I know with what you're speaking about, Craig, is more the office sector and the challenges of the office sector specifically.
WeWorks, like WeWorks
The WeWork sort of concept.
model.
That model it works, but it can't take up all the excess office space that's currently on the market. So what's happening with a lot of that office space is, particularly in Sunning Hill, there are quite a few developers that are buying up the office blocks and converting them into residential. Now, what can a corporate do to get their staff back in the office? The only way you're going to attract people back to the office is by giving them an incentive to be back in the office. And the companies are not offering incentives to get people back in the office. Instead, and I'm speaking from personal experience, speaking to ex-colleagues at the bank and that sort of thing, it's more a threat that you need to be back in the office else.
Sure.
So I think that is what is essentially happening. I don't think people want to work. I think people want to have the flexibility of choosing to either be in the office
Want the freedom.
or to work from home. Yes, they want the flexibility, and I think that's what needs to be done. So I know that what some companies are doing is they're saying, look, we want you in the office just twice a week. Twice a week you come to the office. The rest of the days you can work from home. So I think that flexibility model is what's going to work in the future, as opposed to us trying to re-stimulate or reinvigorate the office sector. I think that is fighting a losing battle because it's inevitable.
Well, I've noticed in the retail space that they've almost lowered the water and not raised the bridge. It means that they've rented out space in smaller compartments rather than in larger packages. So you walk through these shopping centers right now and you'll notice that the spaces have become smaller.
Yes.
So that's kind of the trend that I'm seeing. I'm also noticing that a lot of the media houses are looking at these shopping centers as destination media events to create opportunities to give consumers immersive experiences. So in the retail sector, I can understand that they're doing different things. I'm certainly looking at the corporate market as a whole and saying, well, what do we need to do to stimulate interest? Because all these beautiful buildings that we're selling, we're trying to sell, it's the same reason that buyers don't want to buy, because they haven't got the vision, or they don't know how to put the vision into play to actually stimulate these buildings, to get people to come back. We know that from a corporate point, you need to have your people back. You need the energy in business today. I don't know that we're so disciplined at home. So that's the question I ask is, we see trends in retail, but I don't really see the trend in the answers for corporates to be able to bring people back and also to do something different with the space. That's surely something.
Let's rather do what is productive for the company. And if the company is finding that it's productive for people to work from home, then we carry on that way. But we give them that flexibility to come into the office when they need to attend a meeting, or, there are certain things that need to be done in the office.
So on that, I get you. So the new generation that are kicking into property and investment, How are they reacting to the fact that the trends are moving, in essence, away from having a company and having groups of people at the office? I mean, how are they feeling about the fact that these buildings are not needing to be sold? They want to buy these buildings. But what are they going to do with these buildings? I mean, how do you propose that you re-stimulate the market for just property investment as a whole?
Look, South Africa always has always had and always will have a housing shortage. So one of the best alternate uses to these properties, depending on the area, is definitely residential conversion. You know,
at a certain level.
Obviously, you got to buy it in at a certain price, and you're going to be putting it on the market at a certain price. Where the problem comes in is you have a lack of skill in the marketplace for people to understand. The commercial space is shrouded in mystery. People don't know how to penetrate it. People don't know how to access it. Obtaining funding through the commercial space is extremely difficult. So someone can spot that opportunity, but they don't know how to bring it to fruition because they don't have the skill set, the knowledge base, or the network to bring opportunities like that to market. And the problem is the guys that can do it, they have so much on their plates that they themselves, it's like there's just too much out there. They can't take on everything.
Sure.
And also there's a huge skills gap in the marketplace of the investor who wants to become a big investor or developer to the guy who's already a developer. That gap in between is massive. And it's going to take years.
It's going to take some time to do that and to create that perception. But you are a financial structural expert. And that's your game, to be able to look at opportunities and restructure them or to assist in finance. Take me through just very briefly your process, and I'm sure it's quite lengthy, but take me through that process in a few steps of how you assess an asset and how you would restructure it in such a way to bring a different component to life.
Okay, that I don't think we have enough time for question. But let me say to you like this. Here's one of the big issues. Because I spent 13 years in commercial property finance. I was a deal maker. My job was to go out and look for new transactions for the bank. They needed to put assets on the bank. The challenge, however, is that banks, all of them, are very incestuous in terms of the clients that they want to deal with. So when you go out and bring a new client, let's say I go out, I bring Craig into the bank. Craig wants to buy an office building and he wants to convert it into residential. The chances of Craig obtaining that funding, if he's never done something like that before, is probably 0%.
Sure.
Because the bank is firstly looking at your experience, because here's what counts more than anything else. Previous experience in doing what it is that you want the bank to fund. If you don't have experience in doing that, they'll never fund you. Number two, do you have access to capital? Right? These are the boxes that they tick. Access to capital. Do you have the experience? If you don't have that, the chances of getting funding from a normal, conventional commercial bank is very hard. So what I've been trying to do differently, and this is where my social platforms come in, and I've got a website now that I've started, and this is it's part of the goal of what we're trying to do. I'm out there looking at deals all the time, and I'm saying, instead of going to the bank with a deal that's unbankable, I want to fill the gap in between. I want to help you structure that deal. That's why my website, it says property deal maker. I'm a property deal maker. That's what people always ask me, what do you do in property? Are you an investor? Are you a developer? And I say, no, I'm not an investor. I'm not a developer. I'm a property deal maker. I make deals happen. That's what I'm good at. So I want to rather take a deal that has potential, that has legs, and then say, let's panel beat this deal to the point. Right, and this includes structuring. This includes partnering the person up with the right people, so that when it gets to a normal conventional funder, they look at it and they say, "This is a deal we want to bank. This is a client we want to bank," because it's been packaged in the right way. So instead of trying to fight, we're always trying to fight the banks because we're saying, "Well, the banks don't want to give funding. The banks are too restrictive. The banks only give you money if you have money." Okay, but let's not try to fight that. You can't change the animal. The animal is going to operate the way it operates. So let's try and fit into that box and do deals in a different way and structure it in such a way so that when it gets to them, they're going to be falling over their feet to fund these deals. I feel that we can get to that point. And that's where I want to get, where, you bring deals, we bring deals to the table, we structure these deals, we panel beat them, we put them together, we put the right people together, then we take it for funding in a packaged format where it's easier to fund.
Okay. So, I mean, that's an important component to this discussion because you kind of pave the way to make it possible. So you present the asset in such a way to the institution that they would read it in the right way because you come from that background. So you know the format. So that's very powerful on that note. And I saw that you'd done a couple of transactions, and I saw it in your bio that you've put a couple of interesting deals together also. So tell us a little bit about that, and then I'm going to move on. Just a couple more questions.
Okay, should deal with the private school. I did a deal with the landowner, and that's more what we call like a property wholesaling deal. So that's
but you were absolutely creative in your presentation, and I think that's what's needed right now. You have to have vision, and you have to know how to put it all together. And I think that's a powerful message. Aslam, let me ask you this question: you're a digital content creator. Where does all that come from? Because I know that you're very active on different platforms. How does that work for you? You're obviously out there. You've got a great following. You're increasing your following. You're getting your message out there. How's that working for you? Tell us what you do in that space.
Okay, so, I think when I started this whole journey, trying to, isn't what we try to do in life, we're all trying to improve financially, right? And I just tried a whole bunch of things. I've opened fast food franchises. I've had I was doing car sound at one point, but at some point in my life, I was a network marketer. I joined a network marketing company. If you think along the lines of companies like Herbalife and Amway and and I was in a company like that, but it was a travel-based company, and I was struggling with that business. I did relatively well in the first couple of months. I made a bit of money, and I thought this is a brilliant business model. It's leverage in a different way. But I was struggling, and it led me into the online marketing space. I started going through trainings, online marketing trainings, with a lot of USA-based companies and mentors and coaches. And when I did that, it opened my eyes to something. And what it opened my eyes to was that I was trying to use online marketing to grow my network marketing business. But as I was learning these skills, there was an epiphany. And I realized that I can use this for any business. And I use it now for my property business. Well, to grow my property business. I use it to grow I've got, for example, courses and training where I teach people how to start an online business because it's stuff that I've done. And I sell courses and things through that, because I'm generating all this traffic and interest. But digital marketing came because I saw a need to build a business, and I realized that I can use this across the board. So I've become pretty much an online marketing entrepreneur, and I'm just blending it. You see, the property industry, here's where I see the massive opportunity, Craig. The property industry is stuck in the Stone Ages with almost everything that they do, and digital marketing is the pathway to bringing property into the internet in a way.
Sure.
Absolutely. But there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. And I think it helps. Honestly, here's my feeling. If you want to know what my feeling is on how does the average person get into property if they don't have money, here's my advice to them. This is what I tell some of my students. I tell them, you need to create an online brand, and you need to become a content creator on the internet if you want any chance of growing a property business and you don't have access to a rich grandfather or a rich network of friends and family. Because you need money from somewhere. Because let's face it, property needs money.
Sure.
I know we talk about doing no money down deals, but someone always has to put down the money somewhere. There's always money.
Guarantee.
Yes. The transfer duties, the transfer costs, whatever. Someone somewhere needs to put down the money. And if you want to earn people's trust to get that money, you need to be someone that they can trust. And if you don't have that network, the best way to do that right now is on social media and through creating content on the internet.
and,
that is
and, and consistency in doing that, because you're consistent. You're out there all the time.
You've got to be visible. It's something one of my mentors taught me. She said, you got to be visible everywhere.
Quick question. Where do you see the opportunity for brokers and agents in the next 3 years? How do you see they're going to engage on these platforms in the next 3 years? Do you think that will take off in South Africa to being the main force of contact and connectivity?
This is why I see opportunity. Here's the challenge, right? Not everyone wants to do what Craig Berman is doing right now, which is jumping on camera and speaking in front of an audience. Not a lot of people want to do that. Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to do it, because the first thing that you've got to think about is criticism, what people are going to say. So there is still a huge mindset shift that needs to happen in South Africa, and that's why there's opportunity, because you remember, it's not just South Africa. I have people that reach out to me from other countries. Social media makes us global. So as much as I might be investing in property in South Africa, it doesn't stop someone from resonating with my message, and they're sitting in the UK or the US or Mauritius or whatever, and saying, you know what, I've been following you for 5 years. I'd like to put money into your next deal, or, can you help me structure a deal and invest in property in South Africa? So there's massive opportunity. So to me, if brokers and agents don't become more active on social media and start building their presence and their brands, building their own brand, I think this is where I was giving one of my friends runs a franchise estate agency. And I said to him, you're making one big mistake. You are punting the name of your brokerage friends won't like what I'm about to say. You are punting the brokerage name or the agency name instead of punting your own name. I said, remember, you could give up this franchise tomorrow and you could move over and then open a different franchise with Remax or with another company.
Sure.
Right? Now, all the content you've created is around this existing brand or this brand that you are currently with. So my belief is you need to build your own brand, either around your own name or around a brand that you've created personally, so that irrespective of the agency that you represent, your brand is perpetual. It remains. So because agents will change. The agent today is with Remax, tomorrow is with Bro, next day is with, whichever company. So people need to build their own personal online brands around this topic of real estate, if that's what they're passionate about, so that in the future, it doesn't matter which agency the person is with. Now you'll find agencies sort of headhunting these social media influencer agents. Why? Because they've got a following. Because they have that following, that is currency. The biggest currency right now in the market and value is attention.
Yeah.
The person who has the attention on social media is a person that wins the game. You need to be visible and getting attention to your name and to your brand and to your pages. That's how you generate traffic, and that's what people are looking for. So it's either sink or swim. So in terms of the agents, if any of them end up watching this, build your own brand, get yourself out there, and start building that social equity, because it's going to serve you in years to come.
Well, on that note, Aslam Du Toit, you're an inspiration. And I want you to know that the information you've given us has been invaluable. So I'm going to now refer to you as a deal maker, as a serial entrepreneur, as a property specialist, and a creative content, digital creative content expert. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Thanks, Aslam.
Pleasure, Craig. Thanks for inviting me. All the best.
Okay, my man. Thanks.